Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 351 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Check them out at PerformBetter.com. I'm your host, Anthony Renner. The show notes are located at ContinueFit.com or StrengthCoachPodcast.com. All right, today for the StrengthCoach.com and MBSC.TV Coaches Corner, I spoke with Coach Boyle about his own personal ESD programming, his own personal cardio. He's been talking a lot about Zone 2. We all know he does a bunch of intervals. I wanted to see where and when he puts all these workouts. All right, also, we talked about speed drills and whether or not he does them, and if he puts them in the warm-up or if he uses speed drills once an athlete plateaus. Talked all about that. We also talked about the book, which he's highly recommending for everyone. I hope you will be very happy. Leadership Lessons from a Lifetime in Lacrosse by Don Starsia. Now, I actually have Coach Starsia coming on the show in February, so look forward to that. Now, I also did a special interview called 40 Mistakes, 40 Years with Coach Boyle that you can access by signing up to my newsletter at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. All right, for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a 75 high-quality vitamin, mineral, whole food source superfood with probiotics and adaptogens. You'll get a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach for that offer. All right, today we've got something a little bit different. We've got two strength coaches on, both from MBSC, Vinny Talluto and Dan McGinley, longtime strength coaches there. They are also part of the new ownership group there with Coach Boyle. So I interviewed them separately. I interviewed Vinny about how to coach and execute world-class group training. That's going to be his topic at the spring seminar. I interviewed Dan about his topic at the spring seminar, training through the aging process. But I also spoke to both of them individually about the challenges and the triumphs of being owners at MBSC. It's all new for them, so I want to see what's happening. All right, for the Naamly Maximizing the Member Experience segment with Sumit Seth, who is the founder of Naamly. Naamly is a company that helps build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Go to Naamly.com, Naamly.com. You can schedule a demo, get a feel for what it's all about. Use the referral code StrengthCoach to get started on your free 30-day trial. Today, Sumi finishes up his 3-part series, breaking down the different components of staging a memorable experience. Today, he's going to talk about an overlooked and key piece of the series, souvenirs, which are basically walking billboards for your brand, whether that's t-shirts or mugs, whatever it may be, that help build personal connection with your clients, and the brand is going to show you how to do that. All right, at Perform Better right now, the online sale, there's 50% off a bunch of stuff, including bumper plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells. Also, secret, Coach Boyle's complete youth training DVD set is only $49. That's over like $125 discount. I know a lot of people don't have DVDs, but you probably can dust one off somewhere and get that at the bargain price. Also, the one-day seminars are back. Austin, Texas this week, January 28th, then LA, February 18th, Boston, March 18th, and Chicago, April 22nd. Check it all out at PerformBetter.com. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com and MBSC.TV Coaches Corner with Coach Michael Boyle. Just had to throw in the Michael there because it's been a while. It's my first podcast of the year. You can try the new StrengthCoach.com out for 7 days for free. Totally new format, user-friendly. Same great forum as always. Guys, check out that 7-day free trial at StrengthCoach.com. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing well, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been, obviously I follow you, even though I've been a little bit out and about last about a month. And I saw that the Buffalo Buttes were in town and the whole team was working with you. How cool is that to have, your daughter, she's playing pro hockey. The team came in. I know they got romped the next night.
Yeah, they got smacked that night, so we didn't help any, but it was actually really nice. It was actually fun. It was fun to meet all the girls, to put faces with names, because that's one of the things with something like this. Suddenly, professional hockey, you go out there and you're with 20 girls that you don't know, and a couple of them or some of them she's played against, so she had some familiarity with them. I didn't know any of them. I knew a bunch of names, but none of them visually. So it was fun. It was an enjoyable experience. I
Right.
would absolutely do it again in a second.
She knew most of the girls on the Pride, or not most, a lot of the girls on the Pride,
Yeah,
right?
she practiced with the Pride last year in that semester that she had to be off. So she knows all, and most of those girls are local, so she knows more of them. But yeah, she didn't know really. Like I said, she'd played against, I think, two of the girls on the team were in her league at Mercyhurst, and one had been at Clarkson, but not when she was there, but they were friendly. But in general, and then, like I said, there are a couple Merrimack girls that she didn't really know because they're Canadian, but it's
Was she at
it's pretty.
Mercyhurst? You just said at Mercyhurst. Did you mean Robert
No,
Morris?
well, they were at Mercyhurst. When she was at Robert Morris, these two
Oh,
girls were at Mercyhurst.
okay.
They were two of Mercyhurst better players.
All right.
Sorry.
Coach, I don't want to jump on too much zone 2 stuff but I want to talk about your ESD, your strength, your cardio programming right now. Just because Ray Tucker actually asked me, he's like, is Mike doing 2 sessions a day? And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of confused. I know what Mike does sometimes, but from a week, what does your week look like right now from the perspective of cardio?
4 to 5 days a week, I'm doing something.
And what are those
two of them I'm trying to do. So Joe Squiz and I do one really hard interval, that kind of Andy Galpin, hit it high, get it up high once a week. We've been doing that together, and it's actually gotten to the stupid point, because we started out, it was like, oh, what do you want to do? And it was like, okay. One day we tried 4 times 4 minutes. So we did 1.5 miles, because that was about 4 minutes, because that's a big soccer protocol. So I said, I just want to see what 4 times 4 minutes feels like. So,
Yeah.
And then another time it was, well, let's try 4 times 1 mile. So we did that. And then we said, okay, if we've done 4 times 1 mile, let's try 8 half miles. But the other day we did 5 times 1 mile and 1 half mile. And I mean, it's pretty hard.
So that's once a week.
That's once a week. And then I've been getting more like one of the zone 2s a week, longer. So that's the kind of 30-minute ride, 10-mile ride, that kind of thing. And then I still usually sneak in 2 more with my doctor client, where one of the days, because we're just doing it right after the session, sometimes I'll do like a 2-mile ride with him. And then other times I'll do some type of interval ride with him, where we might do like 20-10, 10-20 kind of thing. So
okay,
it's generally ended up with one really hard interval a week. And I have to get back to getting that second zone 2 ride in instead of the other interval day, but I haven't really lately. I've been a little bit like you in terms of a little bit more distracted. I'm going to go in today and get the 10-mile, 30-minute one in about 2:30 today. And then I'll figure out. So, ideally I probably got to kind of try to get a longer one in on Saturday, but never twice a day. No, if Ray's asking if I'm going, I'm definitely twice a day.
Mike, one thing, kind of not epiphany, I had the other night while doing my zone 2, watching the game, is everybody's like always complaining zone 2 is boring, zone 2 is boring. And I felt like, I think it's context. I mean, you're going to the gym to do your zone 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm in my little parlor bar. I call my bar the parlor, with my big TV, watching hockey for a half hour. I was watching the Maple Leafs Panthers game the other night. It was so good. Anyway, but it flies by. And I was thinking, why is everybody complaining about this? I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm doing it at 8:00 at night, watching hockey. I feel at my home. I feel like if you're going to the gym, maybe, if I had to sit in the gym and not look at anything and just sit there for a half hour, I would go nuts. But I feel like it's almost context. I don't feel like the zone 2 is that bad.
Well, you know what it is, I think, and again, maybe for the Mike Boyle strength and conditioning people, because we don't do long duration cardio, it seems really long
Yeah.
for us because again, out of the comfort zone, right? I'm getting much better now. 20 minutes, a 7 mile kind of thing seems pretty easy. Okay, that's not bad at all. And the 30 minutes, the last 10 gets a little long, but I do think, like anything, you adapt, you get used to it. I'm realizing now, again, initially for me, it was very much, wow, I need to work hard, or I need to not work hard, but concentrate to keep my heart rate down because it's so easy to jump up above that 75%, particularly as you go longer into the ride. And so we find you really have to be looking because we've got it up on our TV, the my zones, and you've got to be looking up there and thinking about it. Because for me, if I don't think about it for a minute or two, I'll look up and I'll be 76, 77 with no problem. And then I'm like, okay, I got it. And I don't like it because again, I probably start out at 56 RPMs and I finish at 50. So I'm actually slowing down, which also drives me crazy because I'm very used to thinking, all right, I'm going to be able to I'm going to try to stay 56 the whole time kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I just think it's like anything, it's a comfort zone issue. And I think if you get over the hump, which I have done, then it's not too bad. So
Yeah.
I guess from a conditioning standpoint, and there are other people who get very programmed in to doing 45 minutes, and there with people like you said, whether, it's podcasts, it's music, it's TV, whatever it is, and to make time go by faster. I have never been that type. I've been kind of pedal to the metal, watching the miles the whole time, figuring out my pace per mile, trying to figure out what my best time is. I'm way too competitive in my own head for that. And so the zone 2 thing has been more of a struggle, I think, because of the way it's so far out of our comfort zone that it makes it difficult.
Yeah. Like, what are you posted the other day and about you and Skiz going and doing your 4 uh 1 milers or five one
Yeah.
milers, then maybe next week we'll be able to do 6. What I just popped in my head, like, what are you doing to get better to get to that next week? It's almost like, you get to a point like with strength training. Okay, if I want to increase my bench, there's some accessory lifts. Do you feel like what you're doing with some of the other things should help you get better to get to the 6th, round? What are you doing to get better from that
No,
perspective?
I think it's sort of like a distance runner who's just thinking, okay, I'm just going to run a little bit further the next time I go out. I think it's
Okay.
just that fact of we're going to increase the volume slightly. Like, as I said, we added a half mile. So we added a minute, 15 seconds of work to when we started out, we did 4 1 milers, 2 30 miles. So we did about 10 minutes worth of work. We came back the next time. We did, I think, 5. So we did 12 minutes and 30 seconds worth of work. Now we bump it up again. We're at 13:45. And the next time after this, we'll be at 18 or whatever. We'll do 6. And I think it's just really, it's the same kind of progressive resistance. How do you get stronger? Well, you put a little more weight on the bar
Yeah.
every time. Well, how do you get in better shape? You add one more interval, or you add, in our case, like you add a half an interval, which is sort of what we've been doing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
and it seems to be working.
Yeah. I
I
would think
was
like,
the other day, I think I felt better doing it the other day. So
yeah, because just from my perspective, I was like, okay, well, maybe if he did that same workout twice a week, so then the next week, okay, now we can add because
yeah.
now you're
And then the
you're
other thing we've thought about is, now you start playing with the times. You try to ride a little bit faster time. We've talked about, hey, do we go back to 4 and try to ride 228 miles or 227
yeah,
miles, maybe? And so, and I think, what are you doing? You're playing with volume and intensity, right?
yeah,
Which is the same thing that we talk about all the time in terms of volume and intensity. Intensity, how fast do you ride? Volume, how long do you ride? You try to manipulate one side of the equation or the other, but what you realize is I can't manipulate both sides of the equation. So I
yeah,
can't look at it and think, hey, I'm gonna try to go from 4 miles 4 1-mile intervals to 5 1-mile intervals, and I'm going to try to bump my times down. I look at it and think, if I can do 5 and get the last one still under 2:30, then I've done pretty good, because I've managed to maintain that same intensity longer.
Yep. Good stuff. Strength training helps with that too. You should try some single leg work. That might help. I don't know if you've gotten into that at all, but you should try that.
No.
Anyway, Mike, I saw a video. Saw a video from, I think might have been a couple of years ago, and we know you don't do like the old school, like, not to bring up Mark Verstegen, but like when Mark had, the switches and up on the speed drills. I know you don't do that, but you did allude to like, hey, we're getting some of that in the warm up. Do you specifically put the quote unquote some speed drills that you said, we don't want to have time, but we could probably throw these in, not the typical kind of butt knee, the high knees or kicking your butt type stuff, but like some of the drills. And my part of this question is, after you get somebody to do twice a week, and let's say it's Mark and you got him to a certain point, then would you be able to say, you know what, let's try some drills now? We got him to a certain point just running. Can we throw in some drills that might help him from a technique perspective? Maybe in the beginning it's not going to help. That's what you believe. But then you get to a certain point where you're not, let's say, a plateau. Would you possibly do that? So, talk about the warm up and then talk about possibly adding those at a certain point.
Yeah. So we don't do, we do the stuff that we do in the warm up is stuff that you said, skips and high knee runs and heel ups and that kind of stuff. And we might do some straight leg run and some straight leg skip, those types of things. But they really are the emphasis, the warm up. We still don't do drills. What we have been doing the other day, and we'll do it today if we can work the logistics out, is we've been adding in some wicket runs to try to get a little bit more low intensity, because I think wickets are a really good sprint drill. I really do, because it is that ability to kind of combine the rhythm with the stride length drills. The other thing we've been playing around with, and I think I alluded to this on one of the other podcasts, so I don't remember, Cam Joss had talked about sled sprinting, and we've been playing with increasing the weights on the sled sprints. So the other day, I don't know if you saw, I posted one where Mark was running with 135, and we were able to run at 135 under 2 seconds, which is our goal. Cam had been talking about going higher. He was saying maybe even going as high as 3. I personally don't like the way it looks, but when we're in that, like if I'm in, like for my guys who are, say, 1, 1, 1, 2, then I'm good at 2. I don't think I'm good at 2.5 in terms of, I think 2.5 is going to look like a tractor pull kind of exercise, whereas 2.0 still looks a lot like a sprint, which is what we really wanted to. But I met with a player. I met with Jeff Oliver's son today, who's going to be his pro day and trying some NFL stuff. And I really am believing, I had said a while ago that I think that sled running is kind of horizontal Olympic lifting. And so I'm going to get, like, even today, well, actually not today, next Tuesday, we'll probably go to 155 for our sled sprints and see if we can get under 2.0 at 155. So we'll be, 345s in the sled plus a 10. And we'll get our kind of progressive resistance component that way. And again, it's the same thing, right? Volume. Now we've got kind of volume intensity load. We're running 20 yards all the time. We're increasing the load on the sled, or we're trying to decrease the time. And in some cases, what we've been seeing with the sled runs is we get both. Sometimes we'll get guys and they'll run a faster time with a heavier load. So maybe that's a double win. And then we generally follow that up with one more fly sprint after that. And we've actually gotten, since we've been playing with the kind of the Cam Joss idea, a little more heavy emphasis on the sleds, we've gotten a lot more PRs. I would say,
oh, really?
80 or 90% of our kids have run a PR. Like Mark actually ran the fastest he's ever run faster than he ran before his ACL.
Wow.
So that was good. And we had a bunch of the same kids in that group. We've had a bunch in the 1.0s, which, like, Mark was like 1.11. but we've had a couple kids knock off some 108s and 109s who hadn't done that yet. Guys who had not yet got under 10.
So that's the
Or
answer
under.
to the plateau right now, right? Right now, this new Cam Joss stuff is kind of an answer to a plateau.
Yes, exactly. Yep, it is.
Okay.
It's where we're going. And that's why I said I think maybe combining that with some wicked stuff, so to actually get them to back off, because the one thing that we do probably, it's some people will say they're trying too hard all the time. And so now to be able to back them off a little bit, and the wickets force them into more of a rhythm pattern rather than the A to B, get there as fast as you can pattern.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Speaking of Markey and lacrosse, you posted about a pretty big time lacrosse coach, Don Starsia, 42 years at UVA and Brown, 4-time national championship coach, 2008 Hall of Fame. He wrote a book called I Hope You Will Be Very Happy, Leadership Lessons from a Lifetime in Lacrosse by Don Starsia. And you said, I don't care. Oh, there it is. I don't care if you know what lacrosse is. One of the best coaching books. Coach, just give us an overview, because that's a big, you don't say that a lot. You say I read a good book, but
this is like inside out coaching to me.
Yes.
In terms of, I mean, just a great coaching book. And what it really is it's a series of his letters and essays that he wrote over the course of his career. So one of the first ones I actually have, letter to a college freshman, letter to parents number 2, letter to a college sophomore, letter to returning college players, summer musings, a letter to high school students. Like, they're all things that he wrote over the course of his career, and basically just advice. Some of them were advice to his son, like the college freshman was him giving advice to his son who was going off to play college lacrosse. And then the next one was a letter that he wrote to his son after his freshman year, going into his sophomore year, to talk about what he might want to do. And the great thing about it, I don't know Don Starsia at all. I'm like in the fan club right now because it's just amazing the things that he talks about in terms of, it's such a humanistic view of this. And I actually just sent my first set of notes to Kayla Trainer. I first thing I did this morning when I was reading it was I emailed Kayla and said, okay, you got to get on Amazon right now, buy this book. You got to start with the leadership lessons part. And so it's really interesting. So one of the, he's talking about recruiting. One of them is a letter to recruits. And one of the things that he says in the letter to recruits is that one of the first signs that you're probably not a hard worker is you telling me in your letter that you are a hard worker. Yeah, perfect, right? I mean, only the things that a wise old coach who'd been coaching for a really long time would probably say.
Yeah.
And he said, another one he's talking about to parents, he said, when parents ask me if they think their kid can, do you think my kid can play Division I? And he said, the first thing I ask him is he one of the best athletes at his high school, period? Is he a multi-sport kid who's one of the best athletes at his high school? If he is, he probably can play Division I. If he's not, like, if you're not worried about what his other sport is and him being able to dedicate enough time to lacrosse, chances are he's not a Division I lacrosse player. And so, and again, just, I think there's no substitute for experiential wisdom. And people always say, yeah, that's because you're an old guy who thinks he's got a lot of experiential wisdom. But I really believe that when you look at someone like him, who's been doing it for 50 years and has coached legitimately the best players. He's coached in the MLL, he's coached in the PLL, he won national championships at UVA, coached at Brown. I mean, he legitimately has done it all, but he presents such a humanistic view, a human-oriented view that is so incredibly refreshing. I think particularly, like, even the title, right? I hope you'll be very happy. I was like, who would write a coaching book and call it I hope you will be very happy?
Yeah. That's excellent.
Except someone who hoped you would be very happy.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I was like, this morning driving to work, I'm like, okay, I got to listen to this guy. I got to find a podcast with this guy so I can hear him live as opposed to reading the book too. And he talks about in the book how his dad, kept telling him to get a real job because he went to Brown. It's like, you went to Brown, and you're a lacrosse and soccer coach, because he was the assistant lacrosse and assistant soccer coach. And he said, I almost went to business school. He said, I applied to UVA, I applied to UNC, I got into business school. And all I could think about was that I think I'm way more comfortable in a locker room than I am in a boardroom. And he said, I chose a life and a lifestyle versus a career. And so it's just, you got to get it. You'll love it. Like, you're the type of person, because you'll be, you can put it all into hockey in your head. Like, you don't have to. I always look at the great books like this. It's like Legacy, right? Legacy is about rugby. We don't know shit about rugby.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know about rugby. You don't know shit about rugby. But we both read Legacy, and you come away thinking, wow, what a crazy, amazing culture book. And by the way, it was about rugby, in case you didn't know. And people doesn't make any difference. So, and the good thing for me, I do have an interest in lacrosse, but I don't think you need to have any interest in lacrosse at all to be able to really benefit from the wisdom. So it was really good.
Very cool. Just so if somebody doesn't know, Kayla Trainer is one of the greatest all-time lacrosse players, and now she's coaching at Syracuse. Am I right?
Yes, she's the head women's coach at Syracuse. Yes.
Cool. And that's only been for what's that?
It's just her second year. I said she just finished having all her girls read Slight Edge. So we talk a lot about books and about kind of the impact that you can have in coaching with, and I guess this is the mental game. I'm not a big sports psychology person per se, in terms of, I don't know, whatever, visualization and asking people how they feel. But I do think there's a massive amount that you can do by trying to do the right thing. I always say the Coach Parker line, just do the next right thing. That was his answer to everything. What should I do? Do the next right thing. Just figure out what the next right thing is and do that. And that makes it really easy.
Very cool. Well, when I get off this call, I am going to try and get in touch with Don Starsia so I can get him on the podcast and you can hear what he sounds like.
Absolutely. You should try. He's on Twitter. I did the same thing, because I was like, I'm going to tag him, because then it was my friend Jamie. So Jamie Monroe turned me on to this book, but he turned me on to this book. I think it's Lars Tiffany, if I'm not mistaken, is the current UVA coach. I think just won the last national championship. I hope I have that name right and that I'm not butchering it. But it was his list of top 6 coaching books. And the other one that Jamie said, Boys in the Boat, was his favorite, which I never read.
Oh, it's awesome.
That's
awesome.
He said, so I bought Boys in the Boat, and then I bought the Starsia one. And I don't know why I bought the Starsia one, but I did. And I haven't even touched Boys in the Boat yet, but I'll probably be done with the Starsia one by Saturday. I'll have been through that book. Like I said, I've already started. I'm trying to get back to my idea of creating Word docs of the best information from all of those books. And so I'll just give you this one. So one of the things that he talked about was, it said, you can never take it back. And he said, I became a better, more successful coach when I learned to talk to my staff and players in a positive way. Coaches are often the smartest and most clever people on the practice field, and the players give us lots of material for biting sarcasm. But working to encourage loyalty in the people around us is to speak to them respectively. They never forget. And I was like, oh my God, that's so, just good, accurate, where you look and think, I can tell you, I could still go back to the times that I bit somebody's head off and regretted it, or that I made a smart ass comment and regretted it, and thought, and had to go back to a kid. The one thing that I did, and I talked to coaches about this all the time, I apologize. When I did it, I apologize. I went to the player and I said, I'm sorry, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what helped me to develop really good relationships with my players. I always say I used to jokingly, when I would yell at somebody for something, and when I was completely wrong, but I yelled at them about it, I referred to that as I Jacques Joubert that person, because we had a kid named Jacques Joubert who was our hockey captain, I think in Might have been 95 when we won the first national championship. He had transferred from Princeton. He was a great kid. Not French, believe it or not, but had a great French name. And but he had been missing for a couple of days, and he walked into the workout, and he just came kind of strolling in, and I lit him up like, "Hey, where the fuck have you been?" Excuse my language, you know what I mean? But I was not at all about it. And then he kind of got this sheepish look and was like, "Yeah, my grandfather passed away. I was at the funeral." And I felt like I was about this big at the time, thinking, wow, I think I did it a little bit for show for everybody else because he hadn't been around. And I wanted to let guys know that I wasn't going to put up with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, so I would literally always refer to it, and people who knew me well from coaching at that point would always know, like, oh, I'd be like, damn, I just actually bared that kid. And they're like, no, you didn't. Oh, yeah, I yelled at him about something, and it was completely like I was completely wrong and so far off base. And I mean, Coach Starsia is right. That's that ability or that inability to take it back. The good thing is you can kind of take it back if you apologize. You can maybe regain the respect that you lost if you have the strength to look at someone and say, that was wrong, that was inappropriate. And I did it a couple times. I'd pull the kids in the office, just them and me, and I'd say, hey, I just want you to know that was wrong, that I handled that completely wrong, and that it won't happen again. And I do think that helps you to move, at least to get back. If you maybe you're not moving up the respect ladder, but you're getting back on the ladder. You get to jump back on one and have to work your way back up. But yeah, there's just a lot of, so much good stuff.
Very cool. All right. Well, it's on the list, Coach. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Hope everyone's new year is off to a great start as I welcome you back to Naamly's Maximizing the Member Experience segment. My name is Sumit Seth, and I'm the co-founder of Naamly. This is the final part of a 3-part series where we are breaking down the different components that go into staging that memorable client experience. In part 1 and 2, we spoke about the importance of having a well-designed theme and cues, both positive and negative, to captivate your customer's attention and create a positive, lasting impression about you and your gym. Today, I'm going to share the last and often overlooked key piece that helps you bring strong bonds and gym culture that your members can take with them and show off as walking billboards, quite literally everywhere they go. Souvenirs, goods that help your clients build personal connection with you and your brand. One of my favorite examples is t-shirts. Now, not just any t-shirt, a t-shirt they had to earn. Whether it's celebrating a 5-year membership anniversary, showing up for 100 sessions, or completing a PR, this shirt serves as a great reminder of the life-changing transformation they are experiencing due to your expert coaching and their hard work. It means something to them. It becomes a prized possession. Alternatively, a really good sign that you're providing a world-class program is when your members happily pay for additional swag to commemorate their experiences, accomplishments, and loyalty. Alternatively, a really good sign that you're providing a world-class program is when your members happily pay for additional swag to commemorate their experiences, accomplishments, and loyalty. And don't hesitate to get creative. Baseball caps, vacuum-sealed water bottles, and custom-branded smoothie cups and tote bags. They're all great ways your clients can show their pride in being a member of your gym. People yearn for a sense of belonging, and these tools make it easy for clients to be a part of your tribe. Speaking of tribes, my friends at Mark Fisher Fitness have taken it to the next level with their own lexicon, calling their members ninjas and referring to their gyms as the enchanted clubhouse. I love those guys. Finally, the most important thing to remember when putting all these components together is to appeal to as many human senses as possible. Imagine watching the sunset over a fine 2014 Reserve Bordeaux paired beautifully with Californian lush red strawberries, gorgonzola blue cheese, and the dulcet tones of Louis Armstrong's "What a Wonderful World" playing in the background. The more senses and experience engages, the more effective and memorable it will be. My name is Sumit Seth, co-founder of Naamly, and I trust you'll put all these three components to good use to blend up your very own secret concoction that drives insane profitability as you make the world a better place. To learn more about Naamly and discover how we can help in creating that memorable experience, get started on a free 30 days trial by using the referral code StrengthCoach.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens, 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. I use it every day. For me, it fills the gaps in my nutrition. Lately, I've been actually using it as like a pre-workout. But they're going to give you 1 year free supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. I recommend getting the subscription because you'll get 20% off. You could skip, like go 45 days. You could skip and go 30 days, or you can cancel at any time. Guys, go to athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach. All right, today, here's what we're doing. We have two new MBSC owners on, Vinny Talluto and Dan McGinley. And what we're going to do, we got Vinny on first. Vinny is somebody who grew up loving sports and exercise like a lot of us and led him into the fitness world. In 2014, joined MBSC. He's considered the MBSC Swiss Army knife. And that's how you got to run it at MBSC. He's a strength and conditioning coach, personal trainer, internship coordinator, which probably could be a full-time job in itself. Adult programming director, again, probably a separate job. And he's a CFSC coordinator, and he's educator. He's going to be doing at the spring seminar coming up, how to coach and execute world-class group training. Vin, thanks for doing this, bud.
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony. Really excited.
All right. Well, like I said, we're doing, we got you and Dan on. I kind of I've been talking to Mike about Bob leaving and you guys coming in. So I was like, well, I got to get those guys on and at least kind of get some different perspective from their point of view, because I think it's really just so cool that you guys are doing this. And there's some challenges, and we're going to talk all about you being a new owner and what those challenges are in a little bit. But I want to get right into adult training. Finn, also what I noticed is I'm looking at the lineup on the spring seminar, okay? And not just the lineup, but what are the topics? Mike's doing 40 years, 40 mistakes. Okay. Jordan Syatt, how to grow and engage social media. Great. But Pat Van Gowen, aging accelerants. So about aging. Kevin, get moving, how to get clients started and make them stay. Dan's doing the aging adult. You're doing how to coach and execute semi-private group training, which can be both athletes. We know can be both athletes and the general pop. And then Eric Daddario is doing how to become a trusted resource in your client's life. Again, that applies to athletes too. But Scott Livingston's doing some video analysis. But man, if you think about MBSC from the past, like athletes, but really the bread and butters in adults, talk to us about how much their adult training there is. What's maybe, if you know a percentage or how much is there. But again, you are the adult programming director. It's got to have a lot of weight there since, that you have a programming director for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny how when we all came to our topics, we kind of were all overlapping, but they're just slightly different. With our adult business, it keeps booming, and we're constantly just getting people literally walking through our door looking like, hey, can I sign up? And I don't know if it's because Mike's been on the Zone 2 kick or you have Huberman and you have Peter Attia and all these guys who are reaching out to this mass market. I think functional training and learning how to move correctly and train properly is getting pushed out to the mass, where I think we're the industry is just booming with adult fitness. So for us, and I'm the former adult program. Dan actually has that role now, but we've talked about it, and we're programming together and talking about how can we apply the best principles for our adult clients as well for training.
Yeah, and I know in the past it's almost been not a mistake, but almost like an overflow. Like, hey, this is what we do, but man, we're getting all these people. Do you feel like you guys are starting to shift towards we need to capture even more of these people and actively pursue them? I'm not saying you guys haven't done some marketing for them, but hey, it's a new ownership group coming in with Mike. You guys have a lot of new ideas. Are you thinking probably actively pursue some of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, with the athletes are great, but as you know, like they're seasonal. So they're going back to their sports. These are people who want to train 52 weeks out of the year. So how can we get those people to start coming in? Because we've always had the stigma of, oh, Boyle's just trains athletes. But throwing up some testimonials and referrals and getting people to realize like, oh no, like regular people just like you train here. And because of that, they feel better. They're not in pain. They look younger. They have more energy. All these different things that, as we all know, are important to training. Trying to get that out as the message that that's what we do at Mike Boyle.
Yeah, and this is another thing why I was like, I wanted to get you guys like this sparked it as well. Was that sometimes okay, it is the Strength Coach podcast, but the problem is that a lot of times the old joke is people don't retire a strength coach, right? Because we have to branch out. We need side hustles. We need multiple streams of revenue. But from a business perspective, and we have Vince Gabriel on here talking about this all the time, and he's separated his businesses from he calls his athlete uh, groups or athlete business something completely different. So from a marketing perspective, it's important. I think it's important that we all kind of understand, to me, one of the biggest sports performance facilities in the country is really focused on that. And I think it's an important message for everybody out there. Like, this is not just for training athletes. It's for training everybody. Then have you seen though? I think in part this is COVID related in terms of this long effect of people saying, and you said about zone two and obviously Huberman and Atia. I just posted that on Twitter. Somebody was asking, why is zone two getting popular? My theory in part is the popularity, the incredible popularity of Huberman Lab and the Drive by those two guys, plus some of the people that they interview. But these guys are reaching the mainstream, the masses with their message. And now it's not just like a Coach Boyle who was reaching really just trainers for the most part. Now these guys are reaching everybody. Trainers are jumping on it because they're hearing it from them. They're getting people. But I think COVID, people are starting to think that they need to understand to take their health into their own hands. Have you seen that with the client? Are you seeing kind of in a different adult coming in?
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to, as a fitness professional, it's like, okay, weights are important and strength are important, but how do we impact this person's life outside of the gym? And where they're talking about things like mental health and sleep and stress levels and cardiovascular fitness, things that they just weren't, they would go in and be like, okay, well, I want to look good naked, right? I want the bodybuilder. And that's how they would train. But now they're thinking, okay, there's other aspects of health that I need to start looking at.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know Rhonda Cat. She's an old friend of the site, and her husband Peter passed away in his sleep of a heart attack. And Rhonda's been a really big advocate of men's health, men in their 40s and 50s, and we're seeing. I had a couple friends that passed away. I'm 56, so I have a couple friends that passed away. Heart attacks, great shape. So we have to take these into account about taking your health into your own hands and not just sitting and understanding, because Vin, you grew up playing sports. Sometimes we think, it'll go away. This will go away. I'm fine. I'll walk it off. My buddy Freddie, he was getting so tired in workouts. That was the first sign that he was having heart problems. He didn't know. He thought he just had to train harder. So this is the mentality, and it's just crazy to think that we do that. But I think it's really important that people are coming in now, and you're seeing more people take their health into their own hands.
Absolutely. I mean, when you hear stories like that, and I'm so sorry to hear that, it makes you kind of scratch your head, and you're like, huh, that's interesting. Did anyone in your family have that? Or, how long have you had those symptoms? And you start to just poke and prod and ask questions, and you kind of get the whole story out of them. And it allows them to kind of take a step back and realize, okay, I need to start focusing on some cardiovascular stuff. I need to start going for longer walks and maybe doing some zone 2 work, really focusing on my sleep, and my heart rate will drop. And there's already all these other markers that will improve. You just start to pay more attention to it.
Now, how do you? Now we're saying these people are starting to come in, but the majority is going to be looking good. The majority of our people coming in are gonna still be the regular cardio influence. How are you talking to people coming in? What is these people that are coming, the adults? Because you're going to get them into your topic at the spring seminars, how to coach and execute world-class group training. So talk to us how you're getting those folks to buy in and to understand, because sleep isn't sexy, heart rate stuff isn't sexy, right? I mean, people want to be like, if I do this, will my biceps look good, or will I lose that, that little roll I got? So how are you approaching this when they're coming in?
I think it starts by just kind of figuring out and getting to have conversation with them, of figuring out, like, okay, what makes this person tick? Are they a type A personality? Are they, soccer mom, someone who stays at home? Are they an older client? And then from there, that's going to drive really your conversations to get them to realize, okay, if I do all these other things, the byproduct of that is getting body recomposition, which is what they're actually going for. But I think it goes to kind of your coaching, and that's the art and the science of it. And then getting them to really fall in love with the culture of the gym, and the language that you use is going to impact that. It's going to help build the connection with the client.
Vin, what's the problem that you see that you try to make sure you guys are solving with, group training, that you guys have noticed, like other trainers? What mistakes of other trainers or have you guys made? What's the problem you guys really need to solve with this group first and foremost? Maybe 2 or 3 things, whatever. So
For us, I think it's not having a systematic approach to their training when it comes to having groups of, whether it's progressions, regressions, lateralizations. It's finding ways to create better customer experiences when you're in a session. What are the feelings you want them to have? What do you want? What are you trying to get out of the session? Are you making them laugh? Are you being engaging? All these things helps create a better experience for a client, which is what I think really really good group training does.
can you define group training for us right now? What does that mean to you? Like, is that 3 people? Is it 25? What is that for you guys?
For us, our group training is anywhere from 6 to 12 clients at a time, whether it's an athlete or a group, adult group. But then you also have semi-private, which is anywhere from 2 to 4, 2 to 5. But the principles and the tactics and the strategies that I'm going to have in my presentation, you're going to be able to implement this stuff starting Monday morning.
Awesome. Let's go over a couple of those things that you might just say, like, just from a general perspective. What are we going to learn in how to coach and execute world-class group training?
It starts from your demonstrations. Are you giving vivid, detailed cues and demos or are your clients kind of zoning out or not paying attention? How can you be more crisp, more concise, and more clear, and more engaging as a coach? It's one thing to do a hurdle jump over a 6-inch hurdle. It's another thing to jump over a 30-inch hurdle and they're kind of like, whoa, like what just happened? You kind of get that. Their eyes pop out. When you're talking about kettlebell deadlifts, are you talking about, push your butt back to the car, like you're trying to shut the car door with your hips, squeeze the kettlebell like you're trying to make it bleed, using this imagery that really makes clients understand a little bit better. And you get a little bit more engagement out of your clients.
How do you guys manage I mean, you have some people, and I don't know about in the group. I'm just thinking of like the wards, for example, right? They've been there for so long. They might be doing semi-private, but how do you manage in your groups some of the experienced people with some of the because you're seeing more, like you said, you see more and more people. How do you manage that really that issue of some people know what the hell they're doing, some people don't, and everybody needs attention?
Yeah, a lot of coaches struggle with that. Like the returners and the new clients or the new athletes come in. That's kind of the art of coaching is, okay, when do I know I need to give more attention and focus to these people versus the people who have been there and kind of know the shtick, right? So for me as a coach, it's the beginning of the session when we're all together is how do I create that engagement with everyone? How do I bring up a conversation starter that's kind of funny or tell a story and everyone's engaged? And maybe I ask the wards who have been here forever, like, hey, what's going on? How was your night? How was your day? So I can kind of engage them early on in the session because I know once we get to the weight room, they're going to be good and they're going to be doing their thing. I think another really good tactic that I've used is, hey, make sure you come grab me before you do your third set. And that way they know that, hey, I didn't forget about you. I want to see your third set. I want to make sure it looks great. How did it feel? Asking those subjective questions so that we're still creating a connection throughout the session.
Awesome. I love it. So just so everybody knows, you can go to MBSC springseminar.com and you're going to see it's 2 days this year. Vinny, I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. So you could drink Saturday night because you have 12 o'clock on Sunday. Although Coach Boyle.
That was strategic.
Boyle is on at 9 on Sunday. Wow, that's bold. Usually, I mean, I figured he would have went 9 on Saturday and like went up to Maine or something.
Marky must have a game. Marky must have a game or something.
There you go. We got him. Actually, let's talk about, because I was going to say you could have pulled the owner card. I want to go over this because this is really cool. We've been talking about it with Coach Boyle over the last couple months and how the transition is going. Bob Hansen, Mike's longtime partner, retired, and your group, it's you, Kevin, Dan, and Steve, right?
Yep.
So the four of you, Kevin Carr, Steve Bigelow, Dan McGinley, and Vinny Talluto. So that could be, I mean, crazy. First of all, never mind that, it's 4 people, but four guys who coach there as longtime coaches, all the, the young MBSC rock stars. And now you guys are owners. You took over you guys are partners with Mike. So you kind of split Bob's partnership. So, first, let's talk about how it's been so far, because it's kind of a crazy thing. It's a crazy transition.
It has been. It's been a dream come true. I mean, all 4 of us have been working there together for 9 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. We're not only coworkers, but we're friends. We've been in each other's bachelor parties, weddings, whatever. So we all have kind of the same mindset, team, and what we want to do going forward. But it has been a little crazy. Things change once you become a business owner. Equipment breaks, the toilet breaks, now it's all on you to figure it out. And that's been kind of a little bit of a headache, but it's all been good. But there's other things to the business side that you never got exposure to as a coach. The back end of the website and, CardPoint, ASF, QuickBooks, you're like, holy crap, I don't know any of this stuff. But luckily we have some really good teachers in Mike and Carrie, who's a rock star, our front desk lady. She's been helping us big time.
Yeah, I haven't heard that as a transition from Bob. And, Bob is for people that don't know, we always kid around about Bob, he's old school, paying, writing a check, paying or whatever. But he got the job done. I could tell you, because when Bob would have to pay me for something, I got that check before anybody else who was using a bank system. And the guy said, he was on top of that stuff. But that can be a mess after a while. It's a lot of stuff when you're dealing with paper. And, you got some young guys coming in, but it's nice to have Carrie there to kind of make that transition. Because like you said, these things aren't that easy. It's like trying to be a jack of all trades. And sometimes that can hurt you. I do want to kind of go, you and I talked a little bit about this earlier, and I've talked to Mike about this on the podcast. I've talked to Kevin about it. The danger here, let's talk about the scary part for me, is the best partnerships I've seen in doing Strength Coach TV and going over over 60 gyms, and obviously doing the Strength Coach podcast for 15 years, is partnerships like a Bob and Mike, Alan and Rachel Cosgrove, Eric Cressy and Pete Dupuis. The best partnerships that I've seen are people have defined roles and they're kind of coming from different areas. Like Bob Hansen is not going to tell Mike how to program, right? They understood. Pete Dupuis is not going to tell Eric Cressy about the shoulder. Alan and Rachel have their superior defined roles. Rachel is super into the finances. Both great trainers. Alan was dealing with some programming, whatever. How are you guys managing this idea of here's 4 guys who, I'm not saying you all have the same skill set, but really 4 trainers coming in, and now you have to be, hey, whose role is what? How is that going?
It's been going good. We recognize that. And I think for us, it's like you said, like, who are the best people in the industry doing that, and how can we learn from them? Fortunately for us, like, business is great, and Mike's not going anywhere, and Bob's a phone call away, and he can be in the gym within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're on our own and now here you go. But we're meeting and kind of defining these things. Steve actually has some background in finance, and that's what he went to school for. So kind of he tailored towards that role. I'm up in the Middleton facility majority of the time. So being more of the operational role up in Middleton, where Dan kind of is in Woburn most of the time. And then Kevin is kind of jack of all trade from a marketing standpoint. He's ran his movement as medicine business. So he has other background knowledge of what it's like. But it's come together as a team and figuring out, okay, what are we working on individually, but then also collectively as a group.
Yeah. So I guess, the advantage there is you guys really understanding and focusing on it and putting it out there and talking about it and saying, hey, we got to be careful here because, hey, look, Vin, you might, decide you want to start do less training, right? Or, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you might decide something in 3 years, 4 years, Steve might have a baby or whatever. It might, things change and people might not want to do things. So as long as I think you're trying to stay a step ahead of it, it could be important.
Absolutely. And having Mike around, I think is, again, I can't stress enough how important it is for him to kind of be there and take the reins. And he's steering the boat. And if we see something, we need to nudge the boat. It's just we're still going straight. We don't need to do a complete overhaul of the business or kind of the training model.
Yeah. Vin, was before I let you go, was this something that you thought of 5 years ago, even in your plans? Were you like, I want to be part of this ownership group here? Or was it even, did this happen quickly? How did this happen?
It's always been kind of a dream of mine, is being able to be part of this gym going forward. I think we're one of the best training gyms in the world. And I've always felt fortunate enough to be able to work here. And if I could think, okay, what do I want and what do I want to work towards? I've been kind of honest with Mike and Bob both, and like, if I could think of my dream job, it's what you guys get to do. You guys get to be the owners of one of the best gyms. I always wanted to be a gym owner, so why not be at Mike Boyle's?
Very cool. I got one last thing for you here, and a lot of places have a no dating policy when they're when at their gym. Now, wait a minute, people might not know this, but now you're married, right?
I am.
And
yeah.
where did you meet your wife?
You are putting me on blast right now. Mike Boyle Strength Conditioning. To my defense, I definitely would flirt with her during our shifts and everything, but it wasn't until she moved on from the gym did I build up the courage to start asking her out on dates, and eventually led to marriage.
Okay.
So there was no funny business.
All right. I was going to say, is there going to be, with the new ownership, is there going to be a policy change with that? So
yeah, we can enforce that policy.
Very cool. All right, Vin, thank you so much for doing this. Congratulations, first of all. And on this is huge. obviously you don't get there without being world-class yourself. So congratulations on that. And then good luck with everything. It's going to be a hell of a ride, and hopefully we'll get you back on.
Thanks so much for having me, Anthony. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'd love to be back.
All right, guys. So second part here, I told you I was going to have on both Vinny Talluto and Dan McGinley. Dan has been a coach at MBSC since January of 2013. Damn. He currently manages the adult group training and the internship program, and he also travels both internationally and throughout the U.S., educating on the MBSC system as a member of the teaching staff of Certified Functional Strength Coach. His spring seminar topic is training through the aging process. We talked about this yesterday or earlier with Vinny about all of this adult training and general population training. And that's kind of the theme of the spring seminar. So also, Dan is a new owner at MBSC. Dan, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we are going to get in. We're going to get your take on becoming, partners with that slave driver, Mike Boyle, as we go on. And, because we talked to Vinny all about it and some of the challenges, so I want to get your take on it. But let's start out with a topic that is near and dear to me as I'm going through the aging process, very gracefully though. Your topic again is training through the aging process, and we talked yesterday, or I talked yesterday with Vinny about some of this idea about training the adult and buy-in, and some of the challenges we have with them. Let's talk general about. You wrote a great article on strengthcoach.com about this, about training. That was called Considerations for Training Adults, Part 1, How Muscles Age, and then the other one was Considerations for Training Adults about connective tissue, which is really important. I want to go over as well. So let's talk about this, Dan. Let's talk about some of the things that we need to remember, because I think we forget. We keep talking, hey, 50, 40 is the new 50 or 50 is the new 40, whatever. Because I am not my dad's 56-year-old guy. We're different now. We are in better shape. A lot of us are, don't get me wrong. But we look younger. We're thinking completely different. But there are things that happen as we age. Let's start there.
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing that these things, it's an inevitable part of life. That's what I kept saying in the article. And it's sort of respecting that these things are going on, but at the same time, not using it as, a crutch to stop training, or using it as like, you can't be doing this, you can't be doing that. It's sort of respecting that, yes, these things are happening, they're changing, that's reality. And then, okay, what can we do, to sort of maximize the outputs with these people, while also taking into consideration that, yes, they are, there are changes that happen with aging. Big ones are, for example, like why we don't sprint with our adults. We were just talking about this in staff meeting yesterday. When you look at things like the Achilles, how the Achilles and some of the connective tissue change with age, it actually dries and stiffens. And that's why you see so many things like ruptures and, men that pick up basketball and things like that. So I just think it's good to look at that type of stuff and acknowledge and be like, okay, that's why it's probably not the best idea to do things like time sprints with our adults. Maybe it's a little bit better to do things like bike sprints where there's a lot lower impact, and we can still get a lot of the same benefits, but we just reduce the risk.
Yeah, and I love what you said about the crutch idea and using age as a crutch. And no, stop doing that. Stop taking your way away. We can take away some of these excuses. But what I want to know, if we're smart about it, which really certified functional strength coach, that's the main progressions, regressions, lateralizations, right? That's the main. If we're smart about this, can we get some of your adults doing the time sprinting eventually? Or is this just something that might not be really a good idea because it's really just the fact that those tendons and ligaments are going to, stiffen and dry out.
Yeah, I think in our thoughts at MBSC really are that it's not worth the risk reward. And it's not always that they can't do things like time sprints or they can't do some of these lifts. It's that, Mike always talks about the cost. I love, as soon as he started talking about that orthopedic cost, so much of this made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
So it's not that they couldn't do the time sprint, but the cost of those types of exercises, things like cleans and whatever, overhead press, whatever it would be, for some of the things that we don't do with our adults, the cost is so high. And that sometimes that's what makes it challenging when we are training our adults. It's like, no, I can do chin-ups. Like I do chin-ups. And I'm like, I know, but looking at your 45-degree shoulder flexion, it's probably not the best option for you. Like, I know it's not that you can't do it. It's that that risk reward scale tips too far towards the risk end. And for us, that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of these things and some of the approach you guys have. So increased stiffness and postural changes, we know those are for the most part going to be inevitable, obviously. And it's hard to reverse that stuff because somebody might be at a desk for, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. And, we're saying come in and foam roll for 15 minutes. It's not, 3 times a week. It's not really, but we got to keep trying. What are some of the things you guys are doing to help with that increased stiffness and postural changes?
Yeah. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. So we never skip things like foam roll, stretch, this stuff that maybe kind of seem a little bit boring. But we realize that, what makes our adults feel better in the long term probably isn't the lifting. I think movement is great. We know how many benefits there are, but them coming in, foam rolling, stretching, doing things like dynamic warm up. I would say if it was a shorter program, like all of our groups at MBSC are an hour long, if we only had 30 minutes, I would probably still do all those things because I think it's that valuable in terms of how people feel on a day-to-day basis, being less stiff and less cranky when they get out of bed, and then sort of improving movement quality long term. I remember we had one guy who was a former linebacker at Notre Dame, and he came in and he had been lifting his whole life. And he said to Mike one day, he was like, I've never felt better than I do here right now. Like, I've been training with you guys for a couple months. I've never felt better. And Mike said to him, like, what's different now than, what you've done your entire life up to this point? He said, the rolling, the stretching, that's the stuff that I think people will skip naturally if they're left sort of to their own devices. So I think prioritizing that is a huge piece. And then really just kind of being reasonable, I would say, with the exercise selection. I mean, we still want to challenge people. We still want to, get them a great workout, but at the same time, we're cautious in that, again, everything has a cost, everything has a risk reward, and we want to tend to stay on the safer, more conservative side with most of that stuff.
Yeah, and I think training, the aging adult is more of a conundrum than most people think, because like you said, we do have that increased stiffness and postural changes. So you want to focus on that. You feel like that might be, and that movement quality. But we know loss of muscle mass, if you listen to Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, I mean, she is harping home on longevity and muscle mass. Atia's talking about it. Huberman's talking about it, right? This idea of loss of muscle mass. So we get these people that are coming in and, guys in their 50s and 60s and ladies, and they still want to look good. So there's that almost like that first phase. And this was kind of the idea behind 50 for 50 is like first phase, and maybe even the second phase is really focusing on, let's get you to the weight loss, right?
Yep.
Because we saw during COVID, who were the ones that were affected most? It's all coming down to this weight. All right, you have increased weight, you're the more likely for diabetes, blah, blah, blah. And the list goes on. So we want to focus on that, but we also want to focus on the movement quality, but we also want to say, wait a minute, what about the strength and power? So with you guys, how do you approach this idea of loss of muscle mass, loss of strength and power when you are so focused on increased stiffness and movement quality?
Yeah, the biggest thing is, and you've probably heard it a million times by this point, but that recipe idea, everything has a place, and we spend a specific amount of time on each segment. And this also became a much bigger priority during COVID as well, because groups are now an hour, and it's a tighter sort of time frame that we're on. So we'll go through 5 minutes of roll, 5 minutes of stretch, 5 minutes of dynamic warm up, and then a really specific 5 to 6 or 7 minutes of power, where it's low impact but still power. So throwing medicine balls, doing things like bounds, box jumps, shuttle jumps, ladder drills, right? All the stuff you talk about with 50 for 50. That's something we never skip. And then really the rest of the time we have 2 12-minute strength blocks, and then our third pod is another strength which is about 5 or 6 minutes, and that leaves us just enough time to do some quick conditioning. So it's really just, I think it's being organized. For us, it's being organized because there is so much we want to fit in. Strength is still obviously a huge part of that, and then from there, I think it's getting people to come back consistently, because we know that, just again, I think if the better people feel when they're there, the more they're willing to be like, okay, yeah, I will keep going back because I feel great when I leave there.
Yeah.
It's that slow cook approach. It's pretty basic when the stuff we're doing, but people do it consistently and they get really good results and they feel good.
It's a struggle though, man, because we are fighting. You and I were talking about this earlier. We are fighting against this. Really, it used to be magazines, but social media and this quick fix approach of, I'm dealing with it with my wife right now. We're on I think close to I think we're in week 3. And I'm just like, please, this is usually where she drops off, but she's kicking ass right now. And I'm like, please give me 6 to 8 weeks. Then you can go and talk about whatever, all the, pill crap. You give me 6 to 8. And she's promising she's going to do it. She's doing amazing. But we are fighting that piece of it. And I like what you talk about in here as well. And this is what I feel like is a good segue into recovery. I didn't realize, to be honest with you, I was like, wow, I got to use this in one of my posts. Is recovery slows down with aging. This is a quote from the article. Because of a decrease in hormone production, protein synthesis, and white blood cells, all of which help tissue reconstruction following training. So it's another reason why we really have to be careful with how we load people as well.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's that minimum effective dose, right? It's like, okay, what can we do to hold on to as much muscle mass for these people as they age without crushing people? We talked about the idea the other day of every once in a while someone will come in and they'll be like, oh, it wasn't hard enough, or I want to feel like I'm crushed at the end of the workout. And for us, we always take care of that on the assault bikes.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what we can do on the assault bike. Like, how about we ride a 2-mile, or how about and that usually kind of silences it quick. But yeah, for sure. Again, it's just to kind of acknowledging like, hey, you're getting older. You're not gonna respond to training the same way you did in your 20s and 30s and maybe even 40s. These things are happening. It doesn't again, it doesn't mean that we stop training or give up. It just means we're smart about it and we adapt.
Yeah.
So yeah, the recovery piece is huge with that.
Have you guys thought of anything? Look, there's only so much time we can have, but in that session we have to prioritize it. But with that idea, I think one thing that I've never really explored, and I really don't hear a lot of people talking about it, is this idea of a cool down to kind of help. And Mike used to talk about it when we had Anna Hartman on here with these, remember the postures, these resting postures, they were called, signaling your body to kind of, okay, now we're in recovery mode. Have you guys thought of a piece of that, like to kind of, but again, there's not always enough time. Sometimes it could be like, hey, why don't you guys go over in the corner over there and do some resting postures or get on the bike for, 5 minutes at this, don't even pay attention to your pedaling, just pedal, don't worry about it. What do you guys do for that?
We do. Yeah. We've talked about it before, and you're 100% right. It's the time factor always, that's sort of the wall we always run into. For a while, we were doing groups on Saturdays. I think Scott Georgiakoulis was doing sort of a recovery flow type of thing with a lot of those resting postures in. Recently, we've been putting a lot of those resting postures into the warm-up to kind of get people. I mean, for one, it's just great mobility, but it's also really good for people to recognize, like, ooh, I can't cross my legs. I should probably work on that. And then trying to talk to people about, like, hey, this is stuff you can do, during a commercial of the game you're watching, whatever, like get down on the floor, spend a couple minutes in something like a heel sit. We're also always talking about people, like whenever someone asks me, hey, what can I do outside of the gym? It's buy a foam roller, really cheap investment, try to get outside and walk more. And then those resting postures, I think are great. Because again, you can do them sort of like in between. So many people working from home now, in between bouts of work. You can do it at night when you're, watching TV, whatever. Because it's pretty eye-opening how those things change I remember starting, like, the first time Anna Hartman came in, doing those heel sits, and I was like, oh, this is brutal.
Yeah.
And then just from doing it with the groups, it's gotten so much better. So hopefully that's a sell as well, is just seeing how restricted they are, and then seeing themselves improve over time is like, oh, hopefully they just keep doing those things.
Yeah, one way I was getting some of the mobility work in too was I call my starting circuits in the first phase or two big 4 cardio restore. So it's easy to remember, but it's the big 4 exercise in a circuit, push, pull, knee, hip, cardio for 1 minute, medium pace, just to kind of keep that heart rate up. And their rest period is like two stretches, 1 minute each. First of all, because I've seen so many people just want to get right back into that circuit, right? Yes. And then kind of using that time, I used to kind of under Mike's influence, used to put a core exercise in there. And I actually called it Big 4 Cardio Core, had to have the rhyme in there. So now it's Big 4 Cardio Restore, because with my men, my guys, they don't want to stretch. And I'm saying, and they don't want to rest. They want to go right back into it. I'm like, hey, utilize this 2-minute rest period, which was in the research. If you listen to some of these podcasts, they did a lot of research. The rest periods were always 2 minutes, right? In weight loss stuff. So I was like, guys, 2 minutes of the stretch, the lower body. So for me, trying to get them to do that. But yeah, it's always a struggle. And I think for me, it ended up being that was the priority. So, the mobility piece.
It's definitely hard. Figuring out the ways to extend the hour, keeping it an hour, but because we're running into that right now too with the zone 2 stuff, which I know everyone's been talking about it, but it's if we give an option now. So for example, all of our conditioning is always going to be some sort of interval, and then second option is some of the steady state stuff. But you run into people who are like, hey, I got to get to work, like I don't have 20 minutes, so we've been going back and forth, like, hey, is it better for some of these people to maybe cut a little bit out of that third strength block, spend a little bit extra time on the bike? So it's kind of it's a bit of a work in progress, I would say.
Yeah, I guess to quote Coach Boyle, well, what's the bucket right now that they need filling, and sometimes that might be like, okay, this group over here, you're the zone 2 bucket, you guys are the strength bucket, you could stay in there. So it's definitely an interesting. I always say, don't just go for a walk. Get a dog instead, a medium-sized dog, because they have to go for longer walks. So,
Sure.
Dan, what are some things before we get into you being an owner now, and I want to see some of the challenges you feel like you guys are facing, is specific considerations for training groups of adults. And we talked about your semi-private with Vinny, 4 to 6, and then the groups are up to 16. Sometimes it can be a challenge, especially with adults. We just talked about all of these things. So I might have increased stiffness and postural changes, but I'm doing pretty good on muscle mass. Somebody else might be like, wow, that guy is just killing it. He needs more recovery. How do you manage all these, especially with the adults? Because like with kids, it's almost like, hey, they're all playing the same sport. We know what their schedules are roughly all the same. How are you managing this with the adults?
Yeah, it is tough for the adults, because the thing to realize about our adult group is we classify adults as someone who's not playing competitive sports. So I can tell you Kevin Carr's group is a perfect example. He's got Max, who's probably, I would imagine he's 25, maybe. He's been here since he was a kid. Still really athletic, likes to get after it. He's also got Jim, who's 77.
Jim Ward?
No,
Jim's not that old. Yeah,
Jim's not that old. Jim Minucci, who's one of our oldest adult clients. So they're in the same group, and they do the same. They start off with the same template of exercises, but so I think that the challenge is sort of always thinking of that bell curve, and I always like to think of I try to think of the lowest or the most high risk adults we have. And I'm like, hey, if we throw this into the program, are they going to try it? And are they going to get hurt? And if the answer is yes, I'm like, yeah, we shouldn't do it. It's just not worth the risk. So we put things in. For example, right now we're doing bodyweight forward lunges. And part of that is, I know if we put bodyweight on in the program on the screen, people that are going to use weight are going to use weight anyways. Like, they're going to grab dumbbells. A kid like Max is going to grab, a heavy dumbbell, and he's going to go do his lunges with weight. Someone else, adult, who's maybe a little bit unsure, like, hey, this is exactly where we want you to be. We want you to be, doing body weight first and then maybe progressing later. So it's kind of having some of those safeguards in there. And obviously Mike's a great filter of, if he'll be very honest, if something's in the program that shouldn't be in there, he'll let you know, which is perfect. And so yeah, it's kind of having those safeguards in there, and then trying to meet right in the middle. Again, like, we think, okay, there's probably going to be 10% of people on either end. 10% are going to need some sort of regression. 10% may need some sort of progression. But we have great coaches. We're very lucky. I mean, everyone's more than capable of sort of making those decisions. So it's just understanding who's in your group, what do they need, when to hold people back too. Sometimes it's a matter of having the tough conversation, like, hey, Anthony, we're going to change this exercise. And again, that might be like, no, I can do it. Like, no, we're going to do this instead. And sort of staying firm with that. Because they know, in that, if you have a good relationship with somebody, they know you're not trying to hold them back. You're not trying to rain on their parade. You're trying to do what's best for them. And out of that.
It comes down to coaching too, which you guys focus on a lot. I think a lot of people, it's not, we were just talking about books, right? And you and I before, it's, there's a certain point when you're like, okay, not that I know everything about training, but my focus, like in the workout, needs to be on personal development or coaching, or not so much on the X's and O's, because the CSFC MBSC template has that handled for you guys. Watch the people, coach the people, focus on that, keep your eyes open, and that's the important piece. So good stuff. So, by the way, this podcast is a little late and it's all Dan's fault. He had scheduled Monday, okay, but he had to cancel because now he's an owner. So now he's responsible for stuff. So, so he got a little slap in the face about what it's like to be owner, which he's been getting a lot of, I'm sure. Some stuff happened. Somebody got a concussion, whatever, like this one called out, the snow's coming. Welcome, there's, the plumbing, there's probably plumbing issues. Who's got to do that? Can't call Bob. He's done. So, Dan, one of the things I've talked about with Kevin, I talked about it with Mike, I talked about it with Vinny. The challenge that I've seen, the best partnerships have always been where people have clearly defined roles and respect those people for the role. Bob and Mike are an excellent example. Mike let Bob do his thing. Bob wasn't going to jump into programming. Okay, great. The danger with you guys is having 4 trainers, all relatively grew up in MBSC, got a lot of the same philosophy now. How do you manage kind of these personalities and this whole idea that, hey, here's 4 roughly the same good friends, same personalities types, right? They the same philosophies, but that's not always good for business. So how are you dealing with that challenge?
Yeah, I think it just comes down to being really honest with each other. And I mean, we're lucky because we are such good friends. I think that's we've been honest with each other for years. So, and we all respect each other and really I think we really care about each other. So I think that's hopefully what kind of gets us through. And I'm sure there'll be bumps in the roads, from time to time, which there's always going to be kind of ups and downs, but it's sort of, I mean, for me, it just goes back to okay, remembering who we are, right? Remembering kind of where we came from, which is coming up in this environment of MBSC, and then sort of staying true to what we want to do, and not getting distracted or too big for ourselves or anything like that. I don't think we're in any danger of doing that, because with so many of us together, someone would call. We're all going to call each other out. I think we've kind of decided on that. So
cool. I think the problem is going to be Carr. He thinks he's the boss. So,
exactly.
So, also, is it been a little bit being an employee for a while? You start to get things in your head like, oh, if I was the owner, I would be doing this. And not in a bad way, just like, I'd like to see this happen, or I'd like to see that happen. So, but there's also a danger, and Mike talked about this, when you become a professional strength coach for a professional team, you don't want to go in there guns a-blazing, like, we're changing this, we're changing that. How hard has that been to kind of be like, okay, we'd like to make some changes. There's a lot of us now. We want to make some dough. We want this to be successful. We also don't want to ruin what we had. This is like MBSC, one of the best training facilities in the world. How do you manage that with the new ideas, the new things that you want to do with kind of staying grounded?
Yeah, that is where I think we are all good sort of checks for each other, because we can be honest with each other. Everyone has great ideas and everyone has grand ideas, but you can't do them all at once. So it is definitely us having to sort of rein our focus in and be like, okay, what's the priority right now? And I can tell you right now, we've been really focused on the other coaches, the staff, because we realize okay, none of this happens without these guys, behind the scenes, who are working their tails off day in and day out. So really, we've all sort of gotten our little teams of staff, and we're meeting with them individually to figure out, okay, how do we help you grow, and what are you working on, and things like that, giving them feedback, and then also taking a lot of feedback, like, hey, how do we improve this place? What do you guys see on a day-to-day basis that we could do better? And some of it's ideas we can implement right away. I mean, we just had one of our staff, Megan, just redid our staff room. She had a $50 budget, and she bought a bunch of shoe racks and she cleaned up the whole place and it looks awesome. Right. But like little things like that is things that we could do right away. And then some of the bigger things that we might have ideas for, we're like, okay, let's make sure we're all on the same page. Obviously Mike's on the same page, and realizing that it's a long-term game here. I mean, yes, we all want to, be as successful as possible, but we also are all in this for the long term. So it's not like these big things have to get done right now.
Yeah. I love what you just said about that, because what made me realize, in terms of focusing on the coaching, like Mike always said, what's the one thing that he can do that'll make everything better? Focus on the coaches, because they're the ones out there. And now you have 4 guys. We're still coaching, but eventually that might change. And you need to find the Dan McGinleys, the Vinny Tallutos, the Kevin Carrs, right? Wow. Why am I forgetting his name right now?
Steve
Bigelow. You need to find guys like that, right? Yeah. And that need to replace you. But at the same time, when you guys are all there, is there still room for growth? Because if I'm coming in, I'm like, well, I got all these guys here now. Who, is there going to be these new titles of, who's taking care of the interns, who's taking care of, or is that the owners that are still just going to keep taking care of? So that could be a challenge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that is definitely the challenge is making sure we take care of those guys, just like Mike and Bob took care of us. I mean, they gave us these unbelievable opportunities. Now we want to, create new opportunities for some of these newer guys. So it's definitely a work in progress, but that's the goal. And I think it all starts with the people. I mean, we got to take care of those guys, and that's what's going to ultimately make this grow.
Very cool. Well, congratulations, first of all, on, it's a huge accomplishment. You've been at MBSC for, 10 years now. And to be an owner there is, kind of a dream come true for a lot of strength and conditioning and fitness professionals, and to be part of that. And just a credit to you and the boys for being the kind of guys that you are and coaches that you are, to be able to have even Mike consider you guys to be, partner with, and to trust you like that. So congratulations on that. You got the spring seminar coming up. What's the date on that?
April 1st and 2nd this year.
2 days, everybody. Normally, a lot of times it was only 1 day, but there's going to be a workout, I think, on the second day, right, on the Sunday.
Yeah, there might actually be a workout both days. I know usually we have it on the first day.
Yeah.
We might have it 2 days. We just got approved for CEUs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That will, I'm sure, be officially announced probably later today. But yeah, you get CEUs for it now. We got some great guests. Scott Livingston, Pat Van Galen, Jordan Syatt are our guests. Mike speaking, of course. So it's going to be awesome.
Love it. Looking forward to it. So, Dan, thanks for doing this, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right, that's going to do for episode 351 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Remember, you can try StrengthCoach.com out for 7 days for free. Totally new format, user-friendly, same great forum as always. To access that offer, go to StrengthCoach.com, click the Join Now button to get started on your free trial. Special thanks to Chris Porter and the folks over at Perform Better. Right now, they got the online sale going on, 50% off a bunch of stuff, bumper plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells included. Also, Coach Boyle's complete youth training DVD set is only $49. The one-day seminars are back as well. Austin, Texas, this week, January 28th. Then LA, February 18th. Boston, March 18th. And Chicago, April 22nd. Check it all out at performbetter.com. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Vinny Talluto, as well as Dan McGinley, for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning, performance enhancement, and training adults. Check out the anniversary interview I did with Coach Boyle, 40 Mistakes, 40 Years. There is a link to access that at strengthcoachpodcast.com. Thanks to Sumit Seth and Naamly, helping build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Go to Naamly.com to use the referral code StrengthCoach and get started on your free 30-day trial. Thanks to Athletic Greens. Visit them at athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach. Get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. My name's Anthony Rana. Check out the show notes at continuefit.com or strengthcoachpodcast.com. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.